This is Thank You Mama, weekly lessons from mothers all around the world. Hi and welcome to Thank You Mama. My name is Anna Tyler. My guest today is Dr. Marisha. Marisha is a school counselor, and she's also a host of a podcast called Lioness Queen Podcast, in which she empowers divorced women to recognize that they are God's masterpiece. I love that, Marisha. Tell me more about it. Tell me more about yourself and your podcast and your work.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This is a wonderful opportunity. So I'm excited about helping women, especially women who've experienced divorce like I have, and understanding who they are and understanding they are God's special gift, which I call God's masterpiece. I believe, God made Adam and Eve, but he perfected his second creation, which was Eve. And so that is us as women. And so I just want women to realize that they are a masterpiece. And definitely after rejection can be such a hard pill to swallow. We forget who we are. We forget how special we are. We forget how creative, how eccentric, how beautiful we are. And we internalize so much. And so my podcast is all about empowering women to help them believe in who they are.
I love you for doing this. I have two friends who went through divorces that were very, very hard on them. And for both of them, at one point, I thought, I'm losing them. Like, these women will never be who they were before. But when they managed to find themselves again, I think now they're the most amazing versions of themselves they ever were. And they have these amazing lives now. And it's important to support women through this hard process.
Yeah, I agree.
But you're also a school counselor, so you're supporting children as well in your work.
Yes.
And you are a mother of a 18-year-old son who just graduated a few days ago. Congratulations.
Yay.
That's so exciting. In spite of Corona.
In spite of
all the craziness. That's fantastic. Congratulations. Let's talk about Mama Patricia, because I am excited because you're one of the guests who, when they heard about Thank You Mama, you were like, I want to be a guest. I love guests whom I don't have to seduce a lot, who are like, no, I want to talk about my mom. Tell me about Mama Patricia.
So my mom, I'm an only child by my mom, and she wanted, if she could have had 10 children, she would have had them, but God only gave her me. And I truly believe just the fabric of who I am and what I believe and who I aspire to be has all been because of the seeds that she has planted in my life. And so I pursued so many different things because my mom, from a little girl, taught me that I could be anything I wanted to be. And I believed her. And I may not have really understood it when I was a little girl, but it's just so interesting over the course of my life. Like, there are a lot of different things that I pursued with no fear. So, I had always wanted to go to college, but I started college right after high school. But then I wanted to get my manicuring license, and I got that. And then I got into, I went to clown school. I was a professional clown and had a clown business at one point in time. And my name was Shampoo.
Oh, Shampoo, that sounds fun.
Yeah. And then I started learning sign language, and I became really good at it and fluent. And I became a sign language interpreter. So it was just so many different things that, and I can go on and on, even with me getting, having 4 degrees, I attribute it to my mom saying, you can be anything you want to be.
How did she deal with you? So you quit college to all these other things, and then you went back to school. You have a PhD now.
No, I did both.
Oh, wow. You did everything at the same time.
Uh-huh. I
That
did.
is amazing.
I did. But I had breaks in between. But I did both. I never stopped.
And did I understand it correctly that you had your son, you had a very difficult childbirth, which turned out to be dangerous both for you and for him. And afterwards, your mom helped you and supported you to go through a PhD. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, she did. But I would say my son was born, and then I went back and got my master's. I would say my son maybe had been 3 or so, or 4. And then I continued on.
Let's go back to Mama Patricia, because I would like to hear a little bit about her life and who she is and what she's doing. Mama is a pastor.
Yeah, so my mom is from West Virginia. She is the youngest of 4, and she moved to Maryland some years ago. And her and my dad moved here, got married, had me. And then my parents got divorced. I was like in middle school, and I've always grown up in the church. Actually, my grandfather, her father was a pastor. Her brother was a pastor. So she has been in the church. She grew up in the church as well. And so my mom got her license as a minister, and then she became ordained. And she's always, even in church, like my mom has always been the one who loved helping people. And loved helping people who I would say fall into vulnerable populations. So she loved helping children. She loved helping elderly. She loved helping the homeless. Like I literally, as a young person, I was dragged everywhere. And I didn't feel always safe. But for some reason, my mom, like she felt safe. Like her faith was so strong. So like she would drag me. She would have homeless services out on the street. She used to not work, but volunteer in a juvenile detention facility. She would drag me in there. I was uncomfortable. And actually one I won't ever forget, there was this one day we were there, and I used to have fainting spells as a child, and they never could figure out why. And I had a fainting spell in the jail. That was so traumatic for me.
You do not want to faint in jail.
And I had to be rushed to the emergency room. But like I said, my mom has been so passionate about helping vulnerable populations ever since I could remember. And she's been doing it for years. And so she feels like the church itself, they really don't go to those communities like they should. And so she's just kind of taken that on, and she's been doing it for years. And I've watched her do it and just have a love for people and a love to help people. And that is just who she is.
Mm-hmm. Mama Patricia sounds like a saint.
And actually, you know what? She literally would say that she strives to be Mother Teresa.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and she's been to India twice on mission trips. And she, like I said, she's so passionate to help others in whatever way. And she will give her last to help others.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
What did you learn from her?
So there's so many things that I learned. The one thing that I learned with what I talked about earlier is she told me I could be anything. She told me if I could touch the moon, if I could go to the moon, my mom said that if I could believe it, it could happen. She taught me about faith. And so, growing up as a child and you are always in church, whenever they go, you're there. But then it becomes a point where you face challenges on your own and you have to believe on your own. And so it's like it comes a point in your life where I can't believe through my mother's faith. I can't believe in what she believes. I have to believe on my own. And so my mom just taught me about faith and believing in God and believing in what he could do and how he could help me. My mom also taught me a lot about how to be a mom because she was a great mom. She communicated with me. She was attentive to me. And especially with being an only child, I was lonely a lot. And so my mom was there, doing things with me, taking me places. She loves to have fun, you know what I mean? And so she was just all into me. And I appreciate that about her because oftentimes parents, if you work and you're working a lot, and definitely if you have a lot of children or you have multiple jobs, sometimes it's hard to give that time you need, that quality time you need with your children. And so I do appreciate that she understood the importance of quality time with me. And it's just something that I won't ever forget.
I have in my notes, I have conversations with your child. I found that very, very important. And how you told me how she would sit down with you and just talk to you and listen to you, allowed you to have your voice.
Yes. I used to have a rocking chair, and I used to sit in my little brown rocking chair, and me and my mom used to talk about different things. And so she gave me that voice. She gave me that voice to express myself and talk about things that were going on with me. And I really appreciate that because oftentimes young people don't have that voice. So, I'm a school counselor as well. And so I see it. I see so many kids who just feel muffled. They feel suffocated because they don't have a voice. They feel, sadly, they feel like they can't breathe because they just can't say anything. They can't, express themselves and not be disrespectful, but just say, hey, this is how I feel. Hey, this is what's going on in my mind today. Hey, this is my thoughts about what you said to me this morning. Like, my mom gave me that space. And so that is something that I truly appreciate because I know every parent doesn't do that.
I was just thinking as you were talking about the kids in school, I was thinking how obvious and simple it is, but how many people do not get a chance to develop their voice and how important that is. Do you notice a difference between girls and boys?
As far as communication? Sadly, I would say this generation, they don't really talk much. Everything is text, and even to parents, you know what I mean? So it's like, hey, come down for dinner. Hey, then you have your cell phone at the dinner table. So there's no conversation going on at the dinner table. So really, both girls and boys, they don't communicate well. But I just think it's this generation in general. The communication skills aren't there. But we as parents, we aren't helping our children to practice that because that is something that they will need, when they go out for a career. Even in relationships, like, although we have technology and it's, advancing day by day, you still have to communicate with the person you're in a relationship with. And so it's sad to say that, we as parents, we don't really facilitate that opportunity with our children to have that space to open up and to talk about what happened, how they're feeling, what they're thinking, because it's so critical because they need to be heard. And if they can't be heard from home, then they're going to talk to anybody. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's very interesting for me you mentioned the new technology because we have a 5-year-old and it's interesting that we have to be aware of what we're doing with the new technology. Like, for instance, we're trying not to have cell phones at the dining table because if you're not aware of it, as a grown-up, it's too easy to slide into this thing where you constantly check your phone and you're sitting there. And we've been in too many situations where we've noticed parents sitting at a table with their children and friends and just having their phones in their faces. So it does start with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I wanted to carry that. So that is the piece that I wanted to carry on. So what me and my mom did, having that dialogue and those conversations, I do with my son. So I'm very transparent with my son. And I think that's the other piece too. The one thing that I would say, I love to also show him my flaws. I love to show him my mistakes because I want him to know, yes, life isn't perfect and we're not perfect, but we can learn. And I want him to learn how to conflict resolution. I want him to develop those strategies because sometimes mommy might not always be around. You know what I mean? Because that's life as well. So that's another piece that my mom, it's interesting. My mom used to also work in a funeral home, and she sold plots. That was something that she loved, like she loved to do. And so we talked about death often. We talked about the cycle of life. We talked about, she literally said to me, eventually one day this is going to happen to me. But I need you, it's okay for you to cry. It's okay for you to miss me, but I need you to still live because there's more life for you to live. And so as she's sharing that with me, and she shared it with me for years, that's something that I passed on to my son. Like, hey, life happens sometimes. Mommy might not always be here. You know what I mean? However, this is how I want you to look at life. This is how I want you to handle things. You know what I mean? Because it's the cycle of life. And so that's something that I've just tried to do. Certain things that I've learned from my mother, I've passed it on. Because there's certain things you just want to pass on, certain morals and values and cultural norms and just certain things. And so I just kind of continue with that. So my son gets a lot of things that his friends, I'm pretty sure, do not get. But I just want him, I'm trying to raise a husband. I'm trying to raise a father. And so I'm trying to get him to think in certain ways that he might not normally think. But I'm just trying to drop wisdom into him so that one day those seeds will grow.
What amazing mothers you guys are.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanna just quickly go back to the transparency and talking to your son and showing him your vulnerabilities. What I'm learning through this podcast is how we should learn to consciously think about our mothers and their lives in order to understand them better and understand why they did certain things, and in order to maybe forgive them certain things easier.
Well, and then I think also as things are passed down, the goal should always be to be better. So that's something that I've taught my son, and that's something my mother has taught me. I want you to be better than me. And so, my parents got divorced, and I've watched my mother go through that whole process with my dad. And in the same regard, I've gone through a divorce. And so it's all about trying to figure out, how can I learn from how my mom dealt with situations, but how can I be better? And also with my son, how can, if it's something that he goes through that's very similar to something that I went through, what can he pull to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that. Okay, let me tweak that a little bit because you know what I mean? And so I just think that's the cycle of life. The cycle is all about the lessons, but it's also about how can we get better, especially as the generations go on.
Marisha, do we have more? Do you have any other lessons you'd like to mention?
My mom is extremely affectionate, but she told me she loved me all the time. That is something that I heard from my mother all the time. I didn't necessarily hear from my dad all the time, but he was a dad. And so he'll hug me and he'll nod his head, and he'll say it every now and again. But my mom told me all of the time, and she was so affectionate towards me. And again, that's something that I pass along too. And yeah, that's something I literally remember growing up, and I had acne really bad. And my vision was terrible when I was younger, and I would say Coca-Cola bottle glasses because they were thick. But my mom always told me how beautiful I was, how pretty I was. My mom consistently affirmed me and affirmed what I look like because I didn't feel it, but she constantly infused, I mean, literally infused, just how beautiful I was until one day I felt like that swan she was talking about. It's interesting how, and I tell kids this all the time, it's interesting how parents, especially moms can literally see that diamond in you when you don't see it. They literally see the potential in you. They literally see all that you have to offer to the world when you might not necessarily see it. And that is something that I truly believe that my mom saw in me from a little girl. And I would say in the beginning, I was especially trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, career wise. My mom always saw something in me where she always felt that I would just be great and I would literally impact the world in some type of way. And I didn't know what that meant. I didn't, when you're a young person, you stray away because you were forced to it in the beginning, but until you know it for yourself, then that's when it, really impacts you. But my mom just always believed that something great was going to come out from me. And that's the one thing that I do also love about my mom is that she saw something in me. And actually, I do that to my son as well. So my son I would say he's an introvert around people he doesn't know. He's an extrovert around people he knows. But believing in himself, he's a lot like how I was. And I tell him that now, like I say, hey, mommy was a light like you when she was your age. I was afraid to talk in front of people. I was afraid to go up to people and say, hey, my name is. I was an introvert in that kind of way. And I said, mommy's identity and who she was evolved and changed as I got older, as I experienced more. And then some kind of way, those seeds that my mother planted in me started to grow. And those seeds started to grow to a point where I started realizing the diamond that I was, that she was talking about when she spoke those words to me when I was a little girl. And so I try to do that now with my son because he's trying to, figure himself out. He's trying to figure out what he wants to do in his life and not too sure, right, about the road. You know what I mean? But I've tried to do the same thing in planting those seeds in him that one day that harvest will come.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you for saying that. The seed image is so strong, and this love that needs to be so strong and support in the roots, and that you only recognize later in life how much that means. That's important and beautiful. Marisha, can I recap what I believe we learned from Mama Patricia? Help me if I missed something. I have, okay. If you can believe it, it can happen. So having the courage and be strong and believing in yourself. I have faith and finding your own faith and your own connection with God. How to be a mom. And this is where we spoke about giving time to your children. And we spoke about communication and about sitting down and having conversations with them and allowing them to develop their voices. I have that the goal of passing things down is to be better than me. So the goal should be for each generation to be better, to learn from our previous generations and to be better. And then I love you, the importance of telling your children you love them. And And then I have a little quotation mark here, which says, moms can see the diamond in you. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to add anything to that, or should we close with the diamond in you?
Well, I would say that is something I truly believe. When children are born, we see it. You do not understand love until you have a child. And it's like, I knew what love feels like, when you get married, but the love of a child, it just doesn't compare. And it is such a blessing and an honor to be a mother. And I truly believe, and I'm thankful that God used me to be the vehicle to bring that spirit in the world. I truly believe that was the purpose and reason why me and my ex-husband came together, was for that spirit to be brought into the world. And so if you are a mother, it is such an honor and a gift to be a mother. And although it's challenging, although it's hard, although you wear multiple hats, although you are pulled in every which direction, the time goes by fast. And you have to always trust and believe, no matter what you see, no matter what your children do, even if they stray off of the path, that those seeds that you've planted in them will one day grow.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much, Marisha. Thank you for
You're
being
welcome.
my guest, and thank you for saying me.
You're welcome.
I'm so glad we had this conversation. This is so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you enjoy Thank You Mama and want to help it grow, please take the 2 seconds to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps. If you'd like to get in touch, you can send me a mail at info@thankyouMama.net. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter under Anna Teider. That's Tajder. This was Thank You Mama. Come back next week, subscribe, and tell your friends.